Sketch, Affinity Designer, XD Figma, Pixelmator Pro, InVision Studio. All fresh, new products developed in recent years to break down the long-lost monopoly of Adobe Illustrator since the Julius Caesar-like demise of freehand, RIP. Image courtesy of Corel. So, why is the latest news, the return of CorelDRAW to macOS after 18 years, important? Surely it's a product of a bygone era, a has-been competitor who had its time and lost? Sorry, but not even close. And here's why, from the founder of a company who sells tools primarily for the besieged Adobe Illustrator. Vector artwork can initially seem like a simple idea. Just draw straight lines and curves, give them a fill and border color, scale up and down at quality with a look of distinct smugness. Pity those pushing pixels in Photoshop. Repeat. Unfortunately, history is showing that it's not quite as simple as that. You see, getting basic vector shapes to appear is one thing, but making them dance to the designer's tune with intuitive tools based on thoroughly developed underlying vector handling technology is a completely different level. The partial reason that so many tools have appeared in recent times is that the toolkits for macOS, iOS, Windows, Android, web frameworks, etc. give entry-level vector functionality out of the box. This allows developers to take advantage of vector rendering, Bezier path creation and more in a near instant. There are exceptions, with some developers creating their own renderers, software chassis and vector control from the ground up, just as Adobe was forced to with Illustrator some 30 years ago, and Corel, around the same time. Imagine yourself as a developer. You have made a very robust plan to create a new vector creative package that you hope will be taken seriously by designers, UI/U.X, creatives, packaging, animators, and a whole wealth of vertical markets you identified. Your team has not seen daylight for years, getting bootstrap funding to stretch whilst basic pen tool clones. All the exploratory research in Starbucks has indicated a 30-years-old paradigm should be maintained. Memory muscle and all that, have been carved out of code. The homebrew vector renderer allows your rounded rectangle to be viewed from the equivalent of outer space or with the detail of an electron microscope. Not only that, but you've added a little bit of magic in a tool that nobody asked for, as it is such genius. How could anybody else possibly have conjured up such startling innovation? In the third year, your hired gun web team pushed the message to the waiting crowd. There are rapturous ripples of thumbs up emoji to sponsored social media posts, and this will be a game changer, comments from all. Approximately 3 weeks later, after the adoring masses have prodded the first release for a second time in a coffee break, users will then start to ask the inevitable. It could be useful, but I can't possibly replace. Insert established software of your choice, as it doesn't yet have tool of your choosing. The trouble is that what the user wants is technically a little challenging. It requires math that looks like it could work after a couple of months, but there seem to be more edge cases than first expected, so that small addition quickly morphs into a major undertaking that could take a relatively unknown amount of time to put in place. And when released, it won't be truly valued, as it would only be a feature that should have been present from day one. Think along the lines of drawing parallel, offset, paths, uniting, pathfinding, 300 fiddly tiny shapes, or even reshaping a path naturally and without the result of resembling a drive-by shooting of vector points. Vector creative software development curve. Suddenly, the speed of development outwardly apparent to users starts to look like that shown here. Let's snap out of this nightmare scenario of being a developer. It's starting to quickly look like the automotive market, where each and every year, tens of bright young hopeful companies make an announcement that they are the ones who will smash the monopoly of Ferrari and the Volkswagen empire in the Western Hemisphere. Out of the past 20 years, only 2 or 3 such companies have succeeded in surviving by being very niche or being bloody-minded and hugely backed. The reality of developing the details to a high level of polish is tougher than ever could be wishy ignored, and this all requires a near limitless supply of cash. Simple. It's had 30 years to refine their design chassis and stack of tools. They never disappeared in that time, even though Corel was dead to Apple aficionados for the majority of those years. However, by embracing the massive creative customer base who are stuck limpet like to macOS, they have removed the largest and most relevant argument to bypass the Corel brand in one fell swoop. It can't compete on every level with Illustrator out of the box, but as their advertising goes, it's fair to say their statement, CorelDRAW graphics suite has time-saving tools that other graphics software either don't have, or require a plugin for, also holds true. And yes, astute graphics did get that hint loud and clear. You only have to look at CorelDRAW's native mirroring functionality to realize how much it reflects Mirror Me. There's nothing wrong with that, as competition is good and at least tens of thousands of Illustrator users have astute graphics to lean on to ensure they can reclaim workflow improvements and time savings. CorelDRAW is around 4x more mature than Affinity Designer. It blows Sketch out of the water for feature completeness and UI refinement. It reaches out to a wide range of users way beyond what XD, Figma and InVision can hope for. It is Adobe Illustrator's greatest competitor for the widest range of potential users. Plus, it's available beyond a subscription model. In the UK, their suite is a one-off £599.99. Let's not squabble and call it around £600. In my original version of this article, I wrote the following paragraphs at this point, and that's why it's also likely to fail. For all the hatred of the subscription model when Adobe announced the move to Creative Cloud, it's simply too hard to argue against its initial month's payment of £50 for more creative apps than you could ever expand your workflow to. If you're a hard-up designer just starting out, finding £600 is probably a stretch too far. The other concern with perpetual licensing, Affinity and Sketch, this applies to you too, is funding and ever-growing demand for complex and investment-heavy new features. Somehow they have to be paid for, so if not by subscription, then by repeat one-off payments. Not everybody likes that large, inevitable cost dropping by either. However, within hours of this going live, it was great to see participation from Gerard Metrailer, EVP Products at Corel. Gerard responded with, "Thank you for sharing your thoughts about the V1 product with 30 years of development the team at Corel just released. Just one point of clarification, CorelDRAW Graphics Suite for Mac is available both as a perpetual license or as a subscription. We at Corel want to provide our customers the choice to license the software the way they want, perpetual versus subscription, and don't force anyone to go one way or another. And this is not new, we've been doing it this way, for the Windows version, since the summer of 2012. Indeed. I stand very much corrected. That was lazy research on my part. CorelDRAW is available for £16.67 monthly along with other subscription options in the UK. I'd be the first to say this is good value and worth investigating. even though not like for like, as the CorelDRAW suite is a collection of applications including Corel Photo Paint and access to the CorelDRAW app, as yet untested personally, but interesting nonetheless. It's comparable in cost of subscribing to Adobe Illustrator alone at £19.97 monthly. It is healthy to have to look over your shoulder regularly to see how well you're doing to survive the race. If nobody chases you, you will become lazy. Witness the transformative kick on development rates for Adobe with its XD offering. It's doubtful this amazing pace in development would have come about if it wasn't for the emergence of Sketch, Figma, and InVision. Possibly, the largest threat to Adobe Illustrator's dominance will therefore come from an unlikely source, its oldest foe. This could be the best news for Illustrator users in many years, as the development pencils in Noida are likely to get a quick sharpen. What about the others' wannabes? Can they ever catch up after so many years of development? Well, XD has taken the very wise route of heavily pushing and working closely with third parties such as Astute Graphics to develop and deploy plugins to fill immediately obvious gaps. Naturally, the XD team, having a multi-billion-dollar organization with an established reach into every design market to bankroll them, has its advantages too.